Hello, Alex here, and in this video I want to show you how to develop a roll of 35mm film in Lomography's daylight developing tank with minimal equipment and zero fuss. Let's get into it. The folks at Lomography UK loaned me a copy of the daylight developing tank in exchange for my review, and given that there's no firm timeline, I decided to make a sort of tutorial how-to video to go alongside it while I'm still scripting that video. I do need to return the tank within a reasonable time frame though, and I'm currently fighting a chest infection and suffering very badly with hay fever, so sorry if my voice sounds a bit off, but I have a wedding coming up soon that I'm doing photography for, and I want to have some things lined up so I can keep videos coming out while I'm just fully focused on that. The daylight developing tank is a very simple item in concept. It combines aspects of both a changing bag and a developing tank, allowing you to use a single device to develop your film with no extra equipment needed beyond the development chemicals themselves. The general crux is that by using this removable insert in the center, you can load a 35mm canister in there and then spool it onto the reel contained within the unit itself, and then you can pour your developer in here. This is completely daylight safe and it's very nice to use. As you'll see shortly, once you spool the film onto the reel, you can simply pour your development chemicals in the center here and out around the edge, making this an all-in-one solution for people who have very tight space constraints or simply don't want to have a lot of equipment around, or perhaps just don't want to learn how to handle reels and cut film in the dark when this thing can handle all that for you, which is totally fair. You know, doing all this stuff is a skill that most of us have had to learn, and some people simply don't want to do that, but do want to take advantage of things like film souping or simply developing film at home. Aside from what's included in the box itself, you don't need too many things to develop a roll of film with the Lomography daylight tank. Obviously, you're going to need an exposed roll of 35mm film. You're going to need a pair of scissors to cut the leader flat to begin with, at least one pair of gloves to handle your chemicals safely, and I would not normally condone developing on your dining room table, but I just don't have space to record in my kitchen, as well as a developer, fixer, and your other development chemicals. If you left the leader out of the canister when you rewound your 35mm film after shooting, you can just cut it straight here at the edge with your pair of scissors right away, but there's a good chance you will have rewound the film all the way back into the canister. Inside the box, aside from the tank, you do get a film leader retriever, and this is a very handy tool that you use to actually pull this leader back out of the canister. There are videos on how to use this online, so I would recommend going and checking those out if you're unfamiliar. But the process is pretty much the same regardless of the type of leader retriever. So I've just pulled the leader out here, and the first thing you're going to want to do is cut part way down the leader at the 8th sprocket. Cut the leader in between the sprocket holes so you don't have jagged corners, and then trim the actual corners as described in the manual. This will give you slightly rounded edges here, and it just makes the film load into the reel a little bit more easily. Undo the latch on the development tank by pushing down and opening the clasp, removing the metal outer frame, and then the lid. The first thing to do is remove this inner canister by turning this red knob away from number 1 lock towards number 3 cut, which is also unlock, and removing this inner part here. Once removed, flip it over and open this door kind of on the curved side. This is the flat side that the door is up here, and insert your 35mm canister. You might have to wiggle it around a bit, and then there is a door or a gap that opens up under this door. It's a bit hard to see with my camera set up, but if I get the angle right, you can just about see it there. And you want to pop your 35mm film in and feed the leader through that gap. Make sure that the canister is folded all the way forwards, so the lip sits flat against the surface here, and close the door. This door will now hold the 35mm canister in the correct position, and we need to just rewind the film a little bit so only the tiniest amount of this film leader here is actually sticking out of this slot, like a fraction of a millimeter. It'll surely be very difficult to see there if you can see it at all, but there is only the tiniest amount of film sticking out of that slot. Reinsert this cassette back into the actual main body of the tank and switch it to the lock position, number 1. At this point, remove the crank handle from the box and insert it into this slot here, and simply push the film onto the developing reel. And you can see this white knob spinning as the film is cranked out of the canister and onto the reel itself inside the tank. Once you feel that resistance, which is nice and springy because the film has a bit of elasticity to it and the canister is kind of turning, remove the crank and turn this knob back from the lock position to the cut position. And this will slice the film out of the canister, enabling you to remove this central core. Give it a firm twist and remove this central core. Now you have your 35mm canister, which is empty and can be then removed, and it leaves you with just a little bit of film so that you can actually use this for bulk loading again if you wish. And now our film is in here and ready to go without having needed to use a changing bag at any point in the process. Especially on a hot day like today, where it's like 23 degrees in the shade, not having to use one of these, which gets very sweaty on the inside, is a really big win. Because I'm reusing my developer with time compensation, my development time adjusted for temperature is going to be about 13 minutes. So I'm not going to video the whole process here, but the general idea is you're going to take your developer solution with whatever quantity that you need. It's about 350 milliliters, slightly more than a Patterson tank. And you're going to fill the tank until this shelf here is completely covered. So you pour it straight into the center. And then just once this level here is covered, you know that the actual reel on the inside of the tank is fully submerged and you're going to get even proper development of your film. At that point, either just put the outer lid straight on and you can hold it closed if you wish, or you can use the metal clamp for a bit more security. Personally, I don't always use this. I tend to just use this lid because I am generally developing over there in the kitchen, but it's not that bad to do this at all. The lid does have a rubber seal, so it seals quite nicely. You don't have to worry about spills, even if you're not using the metal clamp. I have to interject here quickly to point out that although you can use this without the metal clamp and just hold the lid down, you do need to use two hands to do it properly. Using a single hand will cause the lid to pop open on one side just a little bit and you will get leaks. So you can use it without the clamp, which I do prefer doing because it just saves time, especially with short developments. But you do need to be wary to make sure you actually have a good grip on this thing to keep it closed. I'm going to start my development here on camera, and then I'm going to go into the kitchen and actually finish it off because I don't like doing this kind of thing here in my dining room. Once you get to the stage of washing your film, I actually recommend not leaving this lid on top because you don't get efficient transfer of the water through the center out to the edges and spilling out the sides here. There's very little water coming out here. Most of it, when this is clipped down, will just kind of flow directly over the top. Instead, I remove this top part and move the water jet from the tap right to the edge on top of the film in the reel and just agitate it by hand. Obviously with gloves for the first couple of minutes, but I have to take them off the handle of the camera. And that gives you nice, even washing, and just do it like this for a couple of minutes until your film is thoroughly rinsed. I should mention at this point that the act of rotating the reel by turning the lid like this is actually something you can do during development as well, not just during washing and fixing, although certain developers don't like agitation like that, and you won't get very even development if you use them in that way. Once you finish developing, even if you didn't remove the upper lid like I showed for the washing step, you should remove it when you're going to do your photo flow to make sure that the photo flow doesn't get too frothy and just kind of clog up in certain parts and prevent actual fluid transfer. So I would take your wetting agent solution, pour it in here, and then dunk the reel in and just kind of manually spin it around, just like I did with the water rinse, and use it like that for your wetting agent. And then you can pull out your film either by just pinching it so it arcs up in the middle and pops out of the reel, like I'm doing, or by separating the two parts of the reel, which you're going to want to do for your actual wash anyway when you're cleaning the reels after development. These look good. The density is nice. It looks nice and even, at least at a glance. And there is a little bit of a fogged part at the edge over here on one side, but that looks more like a camera problem than a development problem. Either way, I am overall very happy with these negatives. So that's it for using the Daylight developing tank. It's a very simple device and it's very convenient. I mean, I've used it a lot in between batches where I've been using my larger developing machines, and even aside from that, it's very nice to just not have to break out the changing bag like on a very hot day like today, where it would get very sweaty and you can potentially damage the film in extreme cases. It's a very nice thing to use, and I hope you found this video useful, but if not, the manual, which is linked in the description down below, provides a lot of graphics, and it's actually a surprisingly high quality manual for something like this, which I do find very impressive. But I'll keep all my personal thoughts about this thing for the final review, which will come at a later date. So for now, I want to thank Lomography UK for sending me this unit on loan, and thank you for watching. But that's all I have to say for this video, so stay safe, and bye-bye for now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at shaka1277 for new pictures every day. If you liked this video and enjoy what I do on the channel, please consider subscribing or checking out my Patreon, where the tiers start at just €1 per month.